Joining me now, Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. She was also an impeachment manager during Trump's second impeachment trial. Congresswoman, welcome back to the Sunday Show. Before we talk about McCarthy and Tucker Carlson, you sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee. How worried are you about China potentially sending lethal aid to Russia to help in its war on Ukraine?
Well, I know as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I'm deeply worried. That our caucus is deeply worried. China appears to have taken sides. We believe sending non-lethal aid and now indicators that they may move forward with lethal aid. At the same time is juxtapositioned their 12-point peace plan. So I hope and pray that China will recognize the bad actor in this. The bad actor is not Ukraine, as we now go into the second year of this ungodly war filled with war crimes, and China should stay on the side of sovereign Ukraine.
Well, Congresswoman, let's talk more about that 12-part peace plan that China has proposed. What do you make of it? They're also calling for a ceasefire and peace talks.
I would love to see a ceasefire. I think Ukraine would love to see a ceasefire. But I don't know if China is the best broker of the peace plan. Again, I call on all nations to be a part of wanting peace and sovereignty for Ukraine and to put an end to this war. But how do you have to assess China's actions in light of the backdrop of their support for Putin and Russia. So that's my concern. Mm-hmm. I have read the reporting that President Zelensky would like to meet with either a representative or the leader of Communist China, again, to bring anybody to the table that will persuade Putin to back out and end the war.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about Tucker Carlson and Speaker McCarthy. Your feelings on the Speaker giving Carlson exclusive access to that January 6th security footage?
Extraordinarily outrageous and irresponsible. Think of what he did here. He said he gave exclusive access to the producers of Tucker Carlson's programming. I won't call it news programming. 44,000 hours of tape. It was a campaign promise, he said. It was a promise he made to campaign for Speaker of the House. It worries me what other promises will be revealed in the upcoming weeks and months. And contrast it with how the 1-6 committee treated those same tapes. Chairman Benny Thompson spoke to our caucus this week and said they treated those tapes with extraordinary care. After all, these are security footage. It is revealing of where the Capitol Police are and different staging, what was going on. It would give access to bad actors to try to do it again. So it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's not as though Tucker Carlson puts forward accurate news. You just saw the ridiculous clip of saying it was not that big a deal, basically. I was there on January the 6th. It was a big deal. It was a deadly deal. And how irresponsible of the Speaker of the House to live up to some campaign promise to the far right and to Tucker Carlson to release the tapes. It's extraordinarily dangerous.
And Congresswoman, since he did release the 44,000 hours, should he have made it available to all news organizations? If you're going to give it out to everyone, not just one.
And I want to be careful. I said release and actually gave access. As far as I know, Chairman Joe Morelli has said, or Ranking Member Morelli has said, they didn't get the tapes. They got access to 44,000 hours of tapes. So they were not, as far as I know so far, they were not handed over. They were given viewing rights.
And actually, that's a very good distinction to make. We've got just a minute, and I got to get you on one more thing, Congresswoman. NBC News has learned that Special Counsel Jack Smith is seeking to compel former Vice President Pence to testify about the insurrection. Pence told our own Ali Vitale that he thinks that is, quote, unconstitutional. Is it?
Absurd. Of course, Vice President Pence, former Vice President Pence, should come forward. I've said it all along from January the 6th, 2 years ago. The Vice President should come forward for historical purposes And so that we learn exactly who was behind January 6th, what were the actions taken. Mr. Pence has published a book about his memoirs about many of these things. So he should come forward. He shouldn't be compelled by subpoena. He should have just volunteered, as should have McCarthy and many others. Jack Smith, I look forward to him getting to the bottom of it and making sure that everybody who has any information comes forward and bears the truth to the American people.
Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania, thank you very much, as always, for coming back to the Sunday Show. For more on Pence's legal pinch, I'm joined by Melissa Murray, professor at the NYU School of Law and an MSNBC legal analyst. Melissa, great to see you. So let's keep talking about former Vice President Pence. Does he have any sort of executive privilege or speech or debate defense, as he's claiming?
The speech and debate clause seems to be the most attenuated portion of his defense here. Again, the speech and debate clause has typically been used to shield members of Congress from any kind of liability in the conduct of their official roles as congresspersons, not necessarily in ceremonial roles like president of the Senate. So the vice president is essentially arguing that because he served as president of the Senate, it was intended to preside over the Electoral College, that would shield him from having to testify as to what happened during that day. I think that's the most attenuated claim. We've never seen the speech or debate clause being used in this context for a former vice president. Very, very attenuated, would certainly provoke a legal challenge, something that would likely go to the Supreme Court. The executive privilege claim, I think, is a little more closer to the vest, but it's going to be hard to assert executive privilege when you've actually talked about these events in your book that you are selling and you promoted throughout the course of your book tour. So again, a lot of different tactics being used here, but I think the real purpose of all of this is to slow down this investigation and to delay.
Well, let's keep talking about this speech or debate clause, because noted conservative jurist J. Michael Luttig, who also advised Pence on the Electoral College before the count on January 6th, wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times that Pence's potential use of speech or debate defense, quote, "We can expect the federal courts to make short shrift of this Hail Mary claim, and Mr. Pence doesn't have a chance in the world of winning his case in any federal court and avoiding testifying before the grand jury." Given what you just said, I suspect you agree with the conservative jurist here.
Judge Luttig has been very clear about this. I think it's not just Judge Luttig. I think everyone who's read the Constitution, everyone who's read the precedents on the use of the speech and debate clause say that this is a very, very attenuated claim. And it really goes back to this broader question. What's the goal here? The goal is not just a Hail Mary, but indeed something that stops the clock, runs the clock out while this is going on. Jack Smith has basically 2 years to get this done, less than 2 years now. And this is just another tactic to slow down this investigation.
And then, Melissa, there's Javanka. What might Jared Kushner and Trump daughter Ivanka know that interests Jack Smith?
Well, these two were in the inner circle, so to speak, and certainly Ivanka Trump was there on January 6th. So it seems likely, given all of the things that Jack Smith is investigating, he's most interested in this pair for their knowledge of what happened in the Trump inner circle on January 6th. And again, this is going to be a situation where executive privilege might come into play. They were members of the inner circle, the Trump executive administration, but they've also talked about this already to the January 6th special committee. So how much they can use executive privilege if it is offered or lodged in their defense is going to be much more difficult to gauge.